If you were to look up cult classic in the dictionary, this movie's poster could very well be the picture right next to it. It's the ultimate low-budget indie film that took underground cinema by storm, breaking new ground with its fresh from film school graduates who wrote, directed, produced, and starred in. It has genuine scares, buckets of blood, inspired countless imitators, and has influences that resonate in modern film today. Not to mention single-handedly launching the established careers of Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. Join Wes and Beat as they visit the original cabin in the woods in The Evil Dead on View the Right Thing.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of View the Right Thing. I'm Wes, and with me always is my faithful companion, Darling Beat. Hi, Beat.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Are you reeling from the movie we just watched? Is your head spinning?
I'm processing.
You're processing. Okay, well, before we jump into that, as always, the normal question, any news, anything exciting going on in your world since last we spoke?
Nope.
Yeah.
Same old same.
Yeah, no, we live boring lives, don't we?
Yeah.
I did see a new trailer. Did you see any new trailers since we last spoke?
I have not.
I saw the new Black Panther trailer, and it looks awesome, like really good. So I'm pretty excited for that. But we got a couple months, about a month left before it comes out. But that's about it. Not much else is going on my end in the movie world. So maybe we just jump into The Evil Dead. This is our bonus episode. The Evil Dead. Know what I'm saying? What do you think? You good to jump in?
Yeah. I promise. I literally promise I'm still processing. Like when I say I'm processing, my mind literally cannot wrap around.
Yeah.
The last hour and a half of my life.
So here's the short synopsis. It's 5 friends travel to a cabin in the woods where they unknowingly release flesh-possessing demons. It's a nice, succinct account of what we just saw, sort of.
It's such a oh my goodness. I don't even know how to say it.
Okay, so
such a short synopsis.
Yeah. So the first question, as always, is did you enjoy this film?
I honestly don't know.
You don't know if you liked it. You're like somewhere in between?
Yeah. I'm like a little wishy-washy. I'm like, would I watch this again? Should I watch this again?
It's one of those movies that I don't love, but I tend to watch it with people who, I've seen it several times, and it's because I watch it with people who've never seen it before. And I think it's sort of, in my opinion, sort of a horror movie rite of passage. Like, I think if you're a big horror fan, you should see this film. And honestly, the second one, I think, is the better movie. But you kind of, especially for what we're doing and talking about film, this is the movie to really go over, because this is the perfect example of making a movie on no budget. Or on a very, very tiny budget.
You can say that again.
Yeah. So it's, it was 13 people out in the woods in Tennessee in the freezing cold trying to make a horror film.
Oh my God. There was only 13 people?
Yeah. 13 people, and they all stayed in that cabin.
Yeah. That's so weird.
Yeah, so they rented this cabin, and the guy that rented it to them was like, "Yeah, you can shoot a movie there, but anything you modify, you have to remove." But interestingly, there was a bunch of things that they had to do, like there was no electricity, so they had to have electricity put in that place. There was no fireplace, so they actually built the fireplace, and that actually was left, the fireplace. And But everything else that they had sort of done to it or added, they got rid of, and stayed, kind of true to their word. They shot a good chunk of it there, and then, you run out of money and you run out of time, and they ended up shooting a bunch of things at home where they were all from Michigan. And the funny thing is they chose to shoot in Tennessee because they were like, it's brutally cold in Michigan, so let's go to Tennessee where the weather will be better. And it turns out that it was mild in Michigan while they were gone, and it was unseasonably cold in Tennessee. Like, it was like a record low in Tennessee at that time of year. And so they ended up sort of like trading for these locations that didn't work out the way they had expected. So when they came back, they shot a bunch of things without some of the actors. So they had stand-ins. These guys were all Three Stooges guys. So they referred to the, eventually in the Three Stooges, Moe leaves the Three Stooges, and they added in a new guy who was kind of like Moe, but not really Moe, and his name was Shemp. So they called all these stand-ins Shemps, or fake Shemps. And so they filmed the rest of this movie with a bunch of Shemps. So it was people dressed up as Linda or people dressed up as Shelley or whatever. And they shot it on, the guy who produced it, they shot it, I think he had a family farm or something. And so they shot a lot of it there. The basement stuff, there was no basement in the house. So the trapdoor didn't actually lead anywhere. So they had to shoot all that stuff somewhere else. And, yeah, it's just, they really, really kind of cobbled together this production.
That's crazy.
And they ended up, making a bunch of things, with Sam Raimi and Ted Raimi, his brother, and, Bruce Campbell. And, of course, the car, the Delta 88, which is in every Sam Raimi movie. And, my brain just like froze when I was thinking about the car, because I was like, oh yeah, it was in Spider-Man. It was Uncle Ben's car in Spider-Man. Anyways, my brain just like had a moment. So these guys ended up, working together for a long time to this day. And during the production or the post-production process and needing an editor, they had one of the Coen brothers help them while they were still kind of nobodies. And then in turn, Sam Raimi and his team helped the Coen brothers when they did their film, and created like kind of this kind of cool, I'm trying to think about how to refer to it, but like this like coming of the new auteurs, the new filmmakers, which is kind of neat. And now the Coen brothers are making, they make Academy Award winning films, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I thought like some of the techniques and things looked under budget.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So they didn't have access to a lot of equipment. So there's that opening shot where the camera's going across the pond. That was like. That's like, Sam Raimi with a camera in a little boat, and Bruce Campbell's like in the swamp pushing the boat. And my favorite is the camera goes through the glass at Linda, I think, or maybe it was Shelley. It was Shelley.
It's Shelley.
Yeah. The camera goes through the glass, and what they did is they mounted a broom to the top of the camera, like a push broom, and so that way when the camera got close to the glass, the broom broke the window and it could continue through, which I thought was kind of a pretty ingenious low budget technique.
A neat trick.
Yeah. And of course they didn't have a steady cam, so when the camera is chasing Cheryl, for example, when she goes out into the woods and the camera's chasing her, they basically mounted the camera to a 2x4, and Sam Raimi held one end and Bruce Campbell held the other end, and they just like hauled ass through the forest. And that's how they did it, And that visual style has sort of carried over into a lot of Sam Raimi productions. The second Spider-Man movie, especially with the Dr. Octopus and when his arms go crazy and kill a bunch of people, they do a lot of that Sam Raimi demon cam type thing, which is really cool.
Well, they were very creative.
Yeah, yeah. What are some of your notes? Tell me about some of your notes that you took. Did you take notes?
Did I?
Were they just like WTF over and over again?
There's a couple of those.
Yeah.
My first note, so highlight of the movie for me was not the pond, but when they were going through the woods and I could literally visually see the man with the camera swaying the camera back and forth,
Yeah.
like as he was going through the trees. I was like, I could literally see someone doing this. And I was like, what the fuck, cameraman?
Well,
It's very cute.
Well, there's a lot of moments like that where it's just they use what they had. There's that scene where Linda and Ashley are sitting on the couch and she leaves the room to go check on Cheryl, I think. And then and he's got the necklace in the box and he's like peeking at her and stuff. That whole scene's completely out of focus, but it's what they got, so that's what they used.
What they got to work with. Yeah, and it makes me have a little bit more appreciation for the film, just to know it was literally 13 people and, barely a budget.
13 people and a handful of dreams. What else you got for me?
I did say the sound, so now that I know budget, that's why some of the sounds were weird.
Yeah.
Like when the porch swing was smacking the house.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I don't think that's the sound it would make.
Right.
And I feel like it's really off, like directional wise from where the camera was.
Sure.
Like where it felt like the sound was coming from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. There is an interesting thing about sound in this movie. The sound of sort of like the wind and the howling. Sam Raimi was staying in a hotel and he woke up in the middle of the night and it was the wind coming off of the mountains where they were. And so he just grabbed his sound equipment and just recorded several minutes of that. And that's what they ended up using. And then later he came to find that other filmmakers have used it since then. Just kind of neat.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I did say this one's really funny. I said Cheryl is the only one with the brain. And then 2 minutes later, I wrote, never mind. I take that back.
Because she went outside, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, this poor girl. And, oh my goodness.
Yeah, poor Cheryl.
And then when they were checking the cellar, I was like, oh, horror movie rule number 1, always check out spaces in pairs.
Yeah.
Don't go alone.
Well, he ended up going down there with him.
Eventually.
It kills.
And then I did you said it kills what?
I was gonna say it kills me that they summon demons by playing a recording instead of having to read it themselves.
Yeah, I thought when they got that and Ash was looking through it and he looked really intrigued by it. I was like, and then I heard the recording. I was like, maybe Ash is gonna read it, because he is intrigued by the book or something. And then the recording played. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I think that's when I said she's the only one with the brain, is because she was like, turn it off.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I wanted to gag at the fake asleep part with Ash and Linda.
You mean when they with the necklace, that scene?
Yes.
I do like that they brought it back at the end of the film when he's going to bury her. Yeah.
Little full circle moment for them.
Yeah. Little peekaboo.
I did get the shovel joke.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me ask you. I'm going to ask you about the controversial moment. How did you handle the tree rape scene?
I honestly, the first thing that came to my mind was this movie was made by a man. Mm-hmm. And then the second part was, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, we're processing. And then when she came back and she was just like, she could, I don't, oh my God. She couldn't even physically tell them what happened. And I was like, explain it better.
Yeah, trauma. They
Yeah.
they tried to, what they thought was sort of evening it out, and I think it's not very clear. It's not very explicit, but at the end, after Linda's head is cut off, and her corpse mounts Ashley, the premise of that is that it's supposed to be the equivalent of the woman getting raped by the tree is like the headless corpse is trying to rape Ash, but it just looks like, you know, a corpse trying to get him. I don't know. It doesn't really like it's trying to have sex with him or anything.
No, it didn't. I mean, there was like a moaning sound like when it happened, and I heard that, but I didn't immediately go into equivalent to this,
Yeah.
you know.
You'll probably be glad to know that Sam Raimi has since said that he regrets putting that in the film, and it was sort of a spur of the moment thing. The script just called for her to be attacked by the forest, and they just kind of kept going with it and going with it and going and going. Oh, but what if we did this? And what if we did this? And then they ended up doing that. And so, you know, Sam Raimi has said that he's since regretted having that in the film. He wishes they hadn't done it. Bruce Campbell also says he regrets the moment when he smacks Linda around. That he wishes that wasn't in the film either.
Yeah. No, I think I mean the Linda scene I wasn't like taken aback or offended by that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he probably could have done it differently. But the Rippy scene with the tree, that was, I don't know, it just was unnecessary.
Yeah, it's
to me, and it didn't progress the story at all, so it didn't matter.
I agree. I think just having her beat up by the trees is plenty. Getting whipped by them and stuff, that's plenty.
Yeah, and the only other part that I think would be controversial would be when Scotty said something to one of the girls, or I'm gonna rip your face off or beat your face in or something.
Mm-hmm.
That part was a part that bothered me, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah,
made me mad.
He's got like not a fun drunk kind of vibes coming off of him.
Yeah, I hated him.
Yeah. All right, what else you got in your little notebook there?
My little notebook.
Oh, this is going to be our shortest episode. I can feel it all of a sudden. I thought it was going to be a different episode, but now I'm feeling it. This is going to be a very short episode.
Don't you dare say that.
Although it is a bonus. It is a bonus episode.
Oh, true. One of my notes is Duck Scotty because my phone auto-corrected.
Right.
I did love Possessed Linda. She was my favorite.
Yeah.
She was
Linda's
hilarious.
great. Yeah, she's like, they got that little like baby doll kind of thing going on.
Mm-hmm. And then when she came back, I was so happy. I was like, oh, she survived. And then like 2 seconds later, it's like, goodness gracious. Poor Linda made it through that whole tragedy, and now she's back possessed.
Yeah. Well.
Also,
yeah, go ahead.
one of the funniest things to me was when Scotty was like, I'm going, leaving, fuck Linda, bye. And so he leaves, and then I guess a period of time elapses, but it wasn't clear that the period of time elapsed.
Uh-huh.
And he came back, and then he's like all injured and whatnot, dying. And he's sitting on the couch, and Ash just slaps the shit out of him and is like, is there another way out of here? And then it's like jerking him. And I'm like, yo, he's on the brink of death. You're like pushing him further. Calm down, Ash.
Hey man, you know, you get attacked by a bunch of possessed friends, and you know, you lose your mind a little bit.
I was like, how would Scotty even know about the bridge? And then I realized somehow time elapsed.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, and Shelley's death was the longest death I think I've ever seen. There's got to be a record.
Oh yeah. Well, and then she doesn't even really die there. You know, it's just like you're talking about when she gets stabbed by the Kandarian dagger. Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah. And she's screaming the entire time. That whole death scene, I literally wanted to just mute the movie. I was like, I can't. She just keeps screaming and screaming. Goodness gracious. It reminded me of in the video game, the the noise in the background that gets really annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Shelly screams and they all stand there.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I was like,
see, you've been trained by horror films your whole life, so you know to get the hell out. You know when to leave, but
but I also know when someone screams, you don't just stand there.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do?
Also, so I'm gonna pick a topic right now.
Okay.
We're talking about the video game for a second.
Sure.
This brought back the vibes because I love that game. We do need to play it again.
Yeah.
But so when you go into one of the houses and it's the cabin and the floor is shaking, so is that supposed to be Cheryl down there?
Yeah.
New appreciation. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, there's a lot of like references to this movie in that game.
This. So would the hand be when the hand what or would that be in a different one?
It's a different film.
Okay.
Now are you curious to watch the next movie in this series?
Yeah. No, because I kind of want to know where all the references come from.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of want to know if Ash develops, has a character development. Because I feel like this movie, he got his ass kicked the entire time.
That's kind of Ash's thing, is getting his ass kicked. So they start to have more fun with it as the series progresses. The second one is a lot more fun and a little bit more silly, and you get some of the fun one-liners, and then the third movie is like a complete departure, and it's super, super silly. But the end of this film was sort of supposed to imply that Ash gets killed at the end. And so the second film, not to give too much away, the first 30 minutes of the second film is recapping this first film. So you get like 30 minutes of this movie, and then you get the rest of the story. And then the third film is like a completely brand new thing altogether.
I don't want to sound unappreciative, but I hate films like that.
Yeah. Well, the second one's a lot better. They pay it off. So, because it's a lot more fun.
Is it the same shots from the first movie, or do they reshoot stuff?
I can't remember. It's been a while since I've watched it, and I can't remember if it's reshot stuff or... I want to say they reshot it, but I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced of that, because that's a lot of, covering him in blood and stuff. And, when they were shooting this, especially some of the stuff at the very end when he was really getting covered with blood, he would take his shirt off to like dry off and like get out of the goop for a bit. And when he would try and put his shirt back on, if it had dried, it would crack and break. He would just lose his shirt. So, going through all that again just to rehash something you already have footage of, I don't know. But, maybe it's something we should explore and watch, and then we can report back.
Yeah. I did I don't know if this was symbolism or not, but when he was walking through the basement and there was a huge pool of blood and there was a package of Band-Aids in it, I was like, I don't know. I feel like that the Band-Aid wouldn't cover that boo-boo.
Yeah, I think that's sort of a funny moment.
Yeah.
Intentionally.
That's pretty hilarious. And also, I wanted to ask about when they started to die. In the end, what kind of effect was that? It looked like the stop animation.
Yeah, they did some stop motion. They did it a couple times. They did it with Linda's infection, her demon infection on her ankle. Remember how it spread out? That was another stop motion moment. So it was a combination of stop motion and just, timing of I don't want to say explosions, but spurts of things. So they used the kind of yellow white liquid that kind of came out of them. That was cream corn. So it was sort of a combination of knowing how to edit the stop motion with freely moving footage. And apparently that took a long time to do because it was very, very complicated.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I think that's pretty sweet that they combined that, and it looked weird, of course, but I mean, I thought it looked pretty decent, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it a lot. It reminds me of like Ray Harryhausen stuff, that like super old school claymation stuff, like Clash of the Titans.
Yeah.
Sinbad, the Seven Voyages of Sinbad, that kind of stuff. So where they're like fighting skeletons and stuff. It was pretty cool. What did you think about their eyes, the demon eyes?
Demon eyes?
Did it seem different to you at all, or?
What do you mean, like their eye? Yeah, I thought they looked like glossed over or whatever.
Yeah, so there's like the contacts they use were like chunks of glass essentially, and when they'd have them in, and from my understanding is they like rub the inside of your eyelids really badly, make the inside of your eyelids like raw, and when they have them in, they actually couldn't see anything. They're completely blind. So think back about the scene where Ash and Linda are fighting, and she's like stabbing at him with the dagger and like licking the dagger and all this stuff, and she can't see her scene partner. She's just stabbing at the
doing
darkness.
Her thing.
Yeah. So pretty.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That had to be so uncomfortable.
Oh, for sure. And they could only have them in for like 15 minutes at a time because they needed to let their eyes breathe. Just completely just cut you off. Yeah, it's pretty rough. I think they did something similar in the Thriller music video with Michael Jackson, where he has like I think he has like werewolf eyes or cat eyes or something, and that was a similar thing where they were like real thick glass contacts that he couldn't see out of. Crazy.
Oh. My eyes hurt just thinking about it.
Yeah. Originally in this movie, the amulet or the magnifying glass was supposed to play a bigger role in the end. It was actually supposed to be that the magnifying glass would burn the book, but it was tiny and the whole thing's at night, and it ended up not really working. So they had to try and figure out a way. They shot so much stuff with that necklace that they were like, well, we have to pay off the necklace somehow. So they just kind of worked it in as best they could. Just kind of.
Yeah, I felt like the necklace was very symbolic. Like he gave it to her when he was burying her, and all of that. When he was looking at it, like he picked it up out of his pocket. Like I felt like there was going to be more for the amulet, like whether he looked through the glass and seen something, or something useful from it. But he didn't, so that sucks.
Yeah. So you want to hear some more low budget things they did in this movie?
Do I ever?
So one that it blows my mind when I watch the scene, but when he's got Linda chained to the table in the shed and he pulls the chainsaw out and he holds it over her, that's a working chainsaw. And he had that real close to her. And it freaks me out every time I watch it because there's a chain on that.
You're so brave.
Yeah, and so there's a really short close-up of the necklace. That's, he looks at the necklace, and that's why he stops from dismembering her. And that close-up, you can see her pulse through her, like in her neck, just going crazy. Because...
yeah,
there's a freaking chainsaw over her head. Yeah, so that's one of those low budget things. I would lose my mind if I was on a set and they tried to do that. It would not happen. Would not happen.
How could they not just take the chain off?
I don't know. Maybe they thought it didn't look right or something. I don't know.
There's a lot of ththings that didn't look right. Nobody was watching for a chain on the chainsaw.
Yeah, I know, right? Let's see. I'm trying to think of some other ones. So the last shot where the camera like goes really fast from outside through the cabin, out the doors, and then up to Ash. Supposedly, and I don't know if this is really true, but this is a story that has been told from the set, that they were on a motorcycle and they drove it through the cabin and just drove it straight into Bruce Campbell. And supposedly he broke some ribs getting hit by the motorcycle. The things we do.
They couldn't remove a chain, but they can get a motorcycle.
Yeah, just, I don't know. Some crazy stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of...
That sounds wild.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories like that. They supposedly also made a little time capsule and buried it in the fireplace. And, you know, after this movie came out, and it was surprisingly popular. And people will go out and try to find the cabin. And from my understanding is nobody will tell anyone where it actually is, but people would find it and it would get vandalized and stuff. And it eventually, I think, burned down. And the only thing that was left on the grounds was the fireplace. The one thing they added to the building itself. The rumor is Sam Raimi burned it down himself. I don't know if that's true.
The scandal.
I don't know if that's true. But that's the rumor.
Who was starting all these rumors?
Yeah, you know, I don't know. It's like, oh, I heard Sam Raimi say that he did it and blah 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 blah. But you know, who knows really? Mm. Speaking of Sam Raimi, he's actually one of the guys, the hitchhikers at the beginning that they wave to. And he's
he's one of them?
Yeah, he was one of the hitchhikers. And they actually say that in the Kandarian incantation, they say something like, because it's him and the producer Rob, and they say like Sam and Rob are the hikers on the road, but they say it in like, you know, fake German or something. So, but yeah, little cameo by Sam Raimi.
That's so cute.
Yeah. So they made this movie, all in was probably about $350,000, which for that time period is actually a lot of money for a small film like this. It has made maybe more than this at this point, but it's made over $2.6 million. So it definitely was worth. I think New Line bought this film, and when they sold it to New Line, they sold them just the film. They didn't sell them like the story or the character rights, knowing that they might want to come back and write a second film. And they would want to, you know, retain those rights.
Made so much money off of this one movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
does that include like any money made off of characters or like character rights or?
Well, I mean, since then they've they made, that's just this movie, you know. Then they made 2 sequels, and then they made a whole TV series that was 2 or 3 seasons on Starz, and then they have multiple video games, and maybe a board game. Maybe, and then, you know, it ties into some other movies that you know and love that you don't realize. It's actually tied into a couple of horror films that you have definitely seen.
Where? Who? Tell me now.
So this movie is tied into the mythology of both Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm gonna take this pause.
What?
This pauses your jaws on the floor. So they reveal this in a couple of ways. I'm trying to remember where it is in. Okay, so in Nightmare on Elm Street. So you remember at the end of this movie, you could see their tongues are like flipping out and they look kind of like worms or whatever. So there's these worm demons, and in the Nightmare on Elm Street 6, I think, the one that they did in 3D, and they sort of like explain sort of the power behind why Freddy is this immortal being. It's these demonic worms, and it's those worms from the the Necronomicon, which the Necronomicon is in Friday the 13th. Jason Goes to Hell. And so you see the Necronomicon in that, and a guy gets possessed, and it has, implications. And then at the very end of that movie, you see the mask is on the ground, and the Freddy's glove comes out of the ground and grabs the mask and pulls it down to hell. And then, of course, then you have Freddy versus Jason, which is sort of like paying off that tie of those two together. And the next film was supposed to be Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. And they didn't make it. Instead, they put out a 4 or 5 issue comic book for it instead.
Oh, they should have made it.
Yeah, I know a lot of people really wanted them to make that.
That would have been so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's fun. I have the comic. It's silly and fun.
I do have a little new appreciation for this little movie. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, the movie itself is not great. It's not mind-blowing. It's not terribly original. Maybe it was slightly original at the time. But, was that freaking 1980? I'm just double checking that. 1981. So, there weren't I'm not so sure that there were a ton of this particular story. There are other movies out there. Like there's a German film that's really similar to this, about teens go into a cabin and they unleash demonic spirits or whatever. And, it's inspired a ton of other movies. Like, the big one that comes to mind is Cabin in the Woods. It's got a whole bunch of references to the Evil Dead in it. And,
I loved Cabin in the Woods. That's the one with the weird cabin that could like shift and.
Well, yeah, it's sort of set up to where you don't know. Well, not to spoil, a little bit of a spoiler for Cabin in the Woods. There's a whole bunch of potential monsters or demons that could happen, and you don't know which ones it's going to be. And so there's the recording of the ritual or whatever that can bring the dead back to life. There's all sorts of things like that in the movie. And of course they're in the woods and get stalked by zombies, family of zombies. So it's got some similarities and definitely some references to it. It's a good one. Chris Hemsworth.
That is a good. I like that one.
Yeah. Any other notes that you might have or thoughts?
My last thought is that I really, really, really liked the close-up of Ash when he slammed the door because he was so scared.
Mm-hmm.
It gave 80s.
But he started using those Dutch angles too in that last 20 minutes or so of the film, which is, I don't know, gives it a new, kind of new style to it compared to the rest of the film. Yeah,
because they did a bunch of close-ups throughout the film, but it was just that one in particular. It was just like not an orange hue, not like an orange hue on it, and the angle of his face and like just the absolute terror written on his face in it. I was like, I love this. It looks so good.
Yeah. Oh, I know another fun fact. So when they listen to the tape and they're sitting around the fireplace, they originally were supposed to be smoking weed, and so they brought weed and actually smoked it, and the footage was unusable because they were just like unruly. They couldn't stay on task, so they ended up scrapping that footage. Had to reshoot it.
Oh my god! Imagine if they kept it as like a blooper reel.
Oh, for sure. I mean, maybe Sam Raimi has that somewhere.
Oh god, that'd be hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I will say one last thing about this is that Bruce Campbell wrote a really great book called "If Chins Could Talk," and it's super fantastic, and it's about his career as a B movie actor. But he goes really heavily into behind the scenes stuff, and in there there's diagrams. He's drawn diagrams of what they did to the camera, how they mounted the camera or mounted a broom to the camera. Oh, there was another one they called, so the one that the camera that goes through the window, I think was called ram cam is what they called it. And then they had another one where they slid the camera down a plank, and they called that the Vasocam, because I think it was just like the plank was coated with Vaseline, so it would slide across it really easily. Yeah, so his book, If Chins Could Talk, is really, I highly recommend if you're interested in horror and B-movie and sort of like how young people with no budget can come together to make a movie. It's such a great example. That's the reason to watch this film as a movie buff. You know, I think kind of Beat was saying, like, I have a new appreciation after hearing a bunch of these things and sort of how it's been connected and what it's sort of inspired after the film. Has been pretty impressive. So Beat, now that you know all this stuff, we've talked about it, would you watch it again? Because at the beginning of this, you said you didn't know if you would.
Yeah, I was on the fence. I think I would recommend that you watch it,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think I would watch it again.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. You just again,
Like you said, I think it's a rite of passage thing.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's locked in.
But now you're going to watch the second one.
But yeah, now I want to watch the second one.
Yeah, it's fun. All right, well, maybe we'll do that sometime together. All right, so this was a bonus episode. So I'm not sure where it's going to slot in. If it's going to come in before the end of October or the middle. I'm thinking it's probably the middle of October. So I'm going to repeat what we said our last movie was. So we said last that our next movie was The Shining, which it will be now. But we're also pairing it with the sequel, which is called Dr. Sleep. So for all the viewsters listening, make sure you have seen The Shining and Dr. Sleep. And we go very in depth on those films, and it's a very fun episode. So look forward to that. Any last words, Beat?
Love you. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Bon cinema.